right, guys, welcome to Hot Dipped. We are joined here by a wonderful individual, our EHS director here at Monnig Global, the safety guy, Joseph Colgan. How you doing, Joseph?
I'm doing real well, thanks.
Awesome. So safety is an interesting career path. I bet there's a story behind that.
There is. It wasn't my career path. It was never a goal of mine when I was a youngster. Matter of fact, when I got into it, I didn't want to do it. I never liked it. It was not even close to my dream. But yeah, it's an interesting story.
And you've been an entrepreneur as well in your career, a lot of business ventures as well, right?
I have. Yeah, I've had a few different businesses. Some I made money on, and one that took all my money, so I didn't do so well. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
How do you think being a business owner has shaped your perspective perhaps on being an EHS director and making sure we're keeping people safe and if at all.
It's a different point of view. If you're just a safety director, it's all about being safe and following the rules. And even though there isn't a rule for everything, you kind of make one. And when you own a business, it's realistic. Can you even do that? Is it affordable? Uh, can I follow all the rules? Maybe I can't follow the rules. What's best for my employee? I mean, it's a whole uh, different way of looking at things. I think every safety director or safety professional should actually own something or be part of operations for a while. It's really easy to say, you know what, we can't do that until we tie off at 4 feet off the ground. But what if there's nowhere to tie off to? What if that causes other hazards, but I want to follow the rule? I mean, there's just so many reasons as a safety professional to look at it from the owner's point of view or the operations director's point of view or COO point of view.
Absolutely. And hot dip galvanizing and truck driving here. Had you heard or dealt much with hot dip galvanizing? Did you even know what it was prior to working with us?
No, matter of fact, I said a pretty stupid thing on one of our calls. I said I didn't realize that the zinc faded over time. I couldn't figure out why the barriers on the side of the highway were a different color than what we were doing here. I knew nothing about galvanizing until I got here.
Absolutely. You've done a wonderful job. I mean, so I'd have to think it's challenging. There's probably unique challenges doing it a myriad of different ways, but we've got a business that was very modern and back in 1960 when it was founded. It's very hard work. A lot of great people working here, doing very hard work, working in hazardous situations from time to time. And there was a culture around that we wanted to protect that work ethic that this team is legendary for, but also try to challenge people to see if we can find better ways of doing things. And I think you got to the point early on that it's all about culture. We've got to build the right kind of culture to get everybody working on this together. Can you maybe describe that process a little bit?
Well, first of all, it's just get to know the guys in the field. I mean, you can't do that from your office. You have to get out there. I spent a long time in the field when I first started here, um, just to understand what they go through. First of all, I mean, you can't change a culture unless you know what they're going through. The, the drawbacks with trying to change a culture has always been leadership. If they're not behind it, especially the owners or the board or whatever it is that you're working with, if they're not behind you, it's not going to work. And then it's the managers at that location or the supervisors at that location. If they're not buying in, you're never going to change it. So the hardest part is turning that all around. And uh, for for Monnig, they've been around forever since 1960. I've had some long-term employees here that, well, some have just retired, but have been here a long time, 40 years. And those guys, it's pretty stuck in their head what it is, and that's the culture. You're not going to change that. All you can do is just be sympathetic and keep an eye on them. I keep coaching them gently because like I said, they've been here a long time. They know it's always worked for me this way here, and it's always going to work this way, and it's never going to change. So it's kind of just getting everybody else to wrap around. I've always found that if we all change a little bit at a time, those that don't want to change are going to do one of two things. They're either going to fall into space and say, I'm going to do it just because I'm tired of being harped on, or they'll find something else to do. And we don't want our tenured employees to find something else to do. So we got to be a little bit more gentle with them.
Absolutely, good answer. And another thing you've done a remarkable job at, I think, in working with the team is recognizing opportunities for improvement and engaging the entire team in doing that. You utilize a method that I like to call the good catch method. I'm not sure if that's the name you give it, but
Yeah.
can you describe that method?
Yeah, it's part of the issue, I think, with all employees, with all of us, forget about being an employee, even at home, is we don't recognize what the hazard is. We just don't see it. You walk by it every day and you see it every day and it doesn't even register. We have supervisors that have seen something 20, 30 years, and they don't see that anything dangerous about it until you point it out and they go, well, yeah, you're kind of right. So a good catch program is for us, we reward on good catches, all good catches, as long as it's not part of their job. So if my job is to skim, clean off the top of the kettle, and I find something while I'm skimming, well, that's your job. You don't get rewarded for that, but you want to report it anyway. There's something wrong here. But if you walk by an extension cord and it's frayed, I'm being really basic here, and you report that, we reward on that. What that does is it gets the mindset to start looking for hazards, because normally we don't look for hazards. That's not a number one goal. It's a safety thing, and we got other things to think about, our birthdays and our wife's birthday and all those sort of things. But once that you get the reward for that, it's kind of exciting. How many can I get? Or I want to get a bunch in. Just I want to beat my coworker. I want to get more than he does, and they don't realize it. Pretty soon, they're starting to spot stuff they never spotted before. So that's kind of the process of that.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good thing. Now, one thing that I've always struggled with, the way we're wired for safety, quality, production, what have you, is to look at things over a period of time, whether it's a quarter or 6 months or a year. We look at things, a lot of things, on an annual basis.
Mhm.
So, what do you say to those that might feel discouraged because the year might not have gotten off to the start they want from a safety perspective, or any of these other areas that we're working on culture and the data is going to follow? I know I've heard you say stuff like that before, but if somebody's discouraged because the year didn't start real well, how do you keep them on track and how do you encourage that team?
Well, nothing's going to happen overnight. I mean, if you're trying to change a culture, very minimum is 3 years, very minimum, and even that's pretty rare. I mean, you're talking personalities, you're talking tenure, you're talking maybe a little bit pushback from certain supervisors, maybe even your leadership, maybe even the board. I mean, it all takes quite a bit of time. But I've told many of our managers, just take the wins. Just every day there's a win. There is, and every day you can go home at the end of the day going, I didn't get my numbers, or we had an injury, or we had a first aid, or we didn't our manpower wasn't up to speed, or there's all kinds of reasons to walk home at the end of the day going, this was just a failure. This was not a good day. There's always good days. Every day is a good day. You can walk away and say, you know what, we didn't have our first aid. Or you can walk away and said, we did have our first aid, but we got our production in. We took care of them quickly. We talked about it immediately. We found a root cause and we addressed it. That's a win. I mean, any one of those can be a win, but we have a choice. We can be unhappy at the end of the day or say, yeah, here's a win.
Absolutely. And one of the things we've really worked together on for our culture here at Monnig Global and all the other entities related, is building a culture of advancement, opportunities for advancement for people, and leadership opportunities for those that want it and show the ability to do that. And with your system that you're implementing here, and the way you're involving folks at all levels, we see a clear path to leadership through the safety program here, right? Could you describe that a little bit?
Yeah, so we have a safety committee, as you know, and we have a safety captain who's in charge of that safety committee. Uh, we're fortunate. We have 5 locations right now, hopefully more in the future, but 5 for now, and there's only one of me. But we have a safety captain at each location, and then obviously the manager is the safety person for that specific location. But the safety captain has his team, and right now we're using supervisors and hourly people. But the goal is, and we've already started the process, is you're not going to move up the ladder here if you're not on the safety team. If you're not brave enough to talk to somebody about, hey, wait a minute, you can't stand on that, or you need to put your gloves on, or you just putting your safety glasses on. If you can't do that, then how could you ever be a supervisor and move up? And then for the safety captain, his role is also to do part of the safety meetings and to run certain things and to participate in things. That gives him the strength to do that once he moves up to a lead or supervisor, or maybe even one day a manager. So it's all the foundation of you can't go up the ladder unless you've been a part of that. Where I know that you're brave, that you're comfortable, that you're able to talk to people, and if you can't do that, then it's pretty hard to lead anybody. So I think it's a good foundation.
Absolutely. And speaking of foundations, one of the things that we spend some time every week on our weekly call talking about, patterned after, for those of you psychiatrists, psychologists out there, Maslow's hierarchy. We have our own hierarchy here that we've put together, and in that base, and we'll spend some time in a future hot tipped episode going over that in detail. But safety is a key part of that foundation, right?
Right.
If we're not getting that right, the other stuff won't be right, and it won't even matter if it is right. I mean, can you describe that maybe a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, safety is not the number one thing. It's just as important as everything else. But if we're not safe and we have injuries or we have occurrences, let's just talk occurrences. I'd rather do that than injuries. let's just so we eliminate our occurrences. Have a huge cost savings for a lot of things. We don't have to fix what we broke. We don't have to fix that piece of equipment. There's investigations, there's root cause analysis. There's all kinds of costs there that hits your bottom line. So that's part of safety. The other part is there's always regulatory agencies. There's always audits. There's always somebody complained maybe. All that comes into place down at the bottom that affects everything else. If we don't have the time to address our customers, we're going to lose on the production side. We're going to lose customers. We're going to lose potential future investors. I mean, who knows what we're going to lose? So that's kind of why it's at the bottom. Obviously, if we don't have employees to be able to work, well, then safety is pretty huge. But I think it's just as important as everything else at the bottom.
Yeah, but I'm sure in your history here and all the other places you've performed these duties at, you've had, different interactions with regulatory bodies at different times. And can you talk about for a moment maybe how different that can go, being prepared, being a proactive organization, having everything filled out correctly and accessible, and the proper training in place, how it goes when that's in place versus when it's not?
Oh, that's huge. I mean, the workload is huge for a safety person, but it's also huge for the company, for the leadership of the company. It's huge for that location. If you have everything in order, if you have all your training done, which is key, and very rarely, I don't know any company that has all the training exactly the way OSHA would like it or whoever might like it. But you can show that you're on the path, the right path. Here it is, and oh, I missed this guy. He was sick that day. We'll catch him next time. Sometimes those things show up in an audit, but if you don't have it, then the looking through the magnifying glass is a lot bigger. And they have every right to do that. I understand that. If you don't have things in place, then you can't prove you're safe. But having it on hand, having your managers uh, trained on what to do with OSHA. I mean, there's all kinds of myths about OSHA. Oh, we don't have to talk to them, or we're going to wait for them to get a warrant. And sometimes I guess it's required. I have never run across that in 27 years that I needed a warrant. I honestly haven't. Now, there's been issues where we've gone back and forth and maybe argued a little bit more than we probably should have, and we've agreed at the end. But if we can show that here's our OSHA logs, bad or good, doesn't matter, as long as you have them and you're keeping them up to date and you can talk about them. Here's our training. Here's our housekeeping. Here's our risk assessments that we do once a year. We do that more often than that. I don't know if you know that, but we do it weekly, right? So we keep track of our risk pretty closely. It just makes the whole interaction easier and usually quicker. I like to see them come in and go out. We have a job to do, not necessarily because I'm afraid of them, because I'm not. They're people just like we are. But if we can get them off our property where our guys are more relaxed, my fear has always been we have a OSHA inspector walking around and we're walking to where he's asked to go. Our guys are nervous and now somebody gets hurt because they're nervous. That's always a concern of mine. So I'd rather get them in and out as fast as I can. And that's how you do that, by being prepared.
I'm glad you said they have a job to do, and at the end of the day, we all want the same things. We want everybody to go home safely the same way they come there. And like you said, sometimes we disagree. Sometimes the way regulations and such are written, it's just hard to know how they apply in certain situations. But fundamentally, we all want the same thing. And I like to think that if everybody approaches their encounters from that perspective, that they just generally go smoother.
I would hope so. I don't know that all safety people or safety professionals are there for that cause. I mean, I think everybody's run into the safety guy that's all the rules, and if you don't follow the rule, then you're going to get written up. Or if you're working with a company, you're going to lose 2 days. Or those safety guys, to me, that's not. They don't get it. I mean, I never wanted to be a safety guy. Like I said, this was not my goal. I didn't like it for probably a year while I was doing this, so kind of forced into it. But over the years, I've come to this is my passion. It's my passion because I know that what I've seen what you were and what we can go to with many companies. I've also seen it fail many times, but I've seen places make huge changes where they were injuries every week and occurrences every week to nothing for 2 years. And to see people's attitudes change, my favorite thing is when you start to talk to people and realize when you say, hey, what did you, we do this often on our calls, tell us about something that happened in the last week that from our ethical will, and we can go through that later on, but one of them is just helping somebody out or coaching somebody, or fun is one of them. When I hear somebody say that, I can't stand my neighbor, but I seen him on his ladder, I had to go hold his ladder because I know he could fall and get hurt, then I know we've come somewhere. It's not just I'm following the rule because the work says so, because this is Monnig's rules and regulation, or this is OSHA's regulation, or the EPA. I'm doing it because it's the right thing and I don't want anybody to get hurt. That's my favorite thing.
Absolutely. I'm
That's
glad
what
you brought up ethical will because that's something I was going to ask you about. And So the ethical will is something we'll go into more detail on a future episode of Hot Dip. We'll go over line by line, but it's a document that my father, John Monnig, president of the company, chairman of the company, brother-in-law Jeremiah Johnson, we're family through and through, and I that we signed and adopted. At a high level, 40,000 foot perspective, could you let everybody know kind of what it is and how it's intended to shape our culture? And maybe if you have an example or two of some of your favorite ethical will examples.
It's really the foundation of who we are. It's sort of like what our culture is, only at a much stronger level, really. I mean, we talk about who are we? We want to make sure that we learn from those that came before us. We want to make sure that we have fun, that we have teamwork, that we're honest, our integrity is there. It's the more deeper culture of who we really are. And it's obvious when people don't fit in. And every company has them. You know who those guys are, right? It's like, one day he won't be here because he's not going to be happy here. That's not who we are. Ethical is huge here. I mean, there's been things that I've been kind of surprised at. Honestly, when a customer overpaid and you pay them back, they didn't even know. And we send the money back. That's the ethical integrity part. I think that's pretty outstanding. Having fun, we have a lot of fun here, but safely. I mean, we don't phone chairs out, but we have a lot of fun. A lot of picking on me sometimes. The safety guy gets picked on, and that's okay. It's part of fun. But I think it gives a indication of who the company really is. I mean, you never know when you go work for somebody. I've been here over 3 years, and I love it. Didn't right off the bat, kind of scary. Hot zinc can pop and fly, and there's acids and there's forklifts and overhead cranes, and I've done a lot of things. I worked in the nuclear power plant and sheet metal and boiler makers and railroad for a long time. This was different. But when you roll out your ethical will, it kind of changes things a little bit. It's like, wait a minute, let's put the work aside and let's talk about who we really are. And I think that's a key part.
Yeah. So we've spent a lot of time, trying to grow and do it responsibly, and we've made a lot of mistakes along the way. Feels like all the mistakes, but we brought you in at a unique time in our history, and like I said, you've done a remarkable job. We were growing, but it wasn't as simple as we thought. We were
Yeah.
learning how to grow. You don't just build a plant, hire some good people, and expect everything to go okay. And there's no substitute for the decades of experience we had in our existing facility, and it wasn't easily replicated. So there were systems and standard work and all those things. And we had some failures, we had some problems, and we brought you in at about the peak of the problem time. And and there's always going to be challenges. If we fail to see opportunities for improvement, we just as well get out of the way and let the next generation take over. But I do commend you for coming in and helping us at a very interesting time in our history. I feel like we've made a lot of progress, but I think that progress is never done, and you can't even mark it and say I'm 50% done because there's always improvement that can happen. What's your take on that?
Well, we've come a long way, a huge way. And I kind of have an envious job for most safety professionals in one way. You don't get to walk in and make it your own. I mean, usually especially a corporate world, you walk in and here's your book and here's our software and here's this and here's that, and we didn't have that. We had to start from scratch, and that's it's been an honor to do that, honestly, and it's been a lot of fun. I've made some mistakes here and there too, and we're bound to do that. That didn't work out very well, and got a lot of pushback on that, and the lace up boot thing didn't go over so well, but now it's working well, and people understand it. Um, yeah, there's a lot to go. There's a long way to go, and you're right. We're never gonna be there. We're never gonna be perfect. Nobody's perfect, and there's rules and regulations that change. There's product that changes. There's the way the plant is laid out changes. I mean, we have one location that's very different from another on how the kettle sits, and there's always going to be changes and always upgrades. But I mean, that's how we become better. I mean, that's the whole point of it. I think.
Yep, I've often thought either you win or you learn. Either way is a win, and I think that kind of ties into what you've been talking about a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, so let's see here. For those that are listening that maybe want to get to know Monnig Global, or get to know Joseph Colgan in a more detailed level, but they don't necessarily know a lot specifically. We don't have to go into the nth degree of detail here, but they don't know a lot specifically about what happens in the galvanizing process and what hazards that presents. I guess if you were talking to other safety professionals that, like yourself a few years ago, had never heard of galvanizing, could you describe the hazards?
Well, I can. There's a few. I mean, it's not as dangerous as what you would think. It really isn't. I mean, when I first came here, 850 degrees zinc to me was pretty scary. If you've never seen it, you never ever came on a plant with that, that's scary. I mean, it's we're putting stuff into that zinc, and we're what 3 feet away from the kettle. It's kind of freaky. That would be, and that can be a hazard. Yes, sometimes it pops. If there's water involved, or if there's not enough room for the air to escape. Sometimes, if it's a tube, it can pop and fly through the air. That's scary. That was the scariest thing when I got here. It's not anymore. I mean, we have overhead cranes that are moving and hoists that are moving constantly if it's running smoothly the way it's supposed to. They're always moving heavy parts. And in our industry, if it falls, it doesn't fall straight down. I mean, if you think that standing 3 feet away from something hanging from a hoist or a crane in a galvanizing plant is going to land there, probably not. It's going to hit a kettle or a pickle tank or something and slide off to the side or who knows what. So that's kind of scary, making sure you're aware of that. Forklifts, obviously, forklifts is always an issue everywhere, but here it's different. There's a rules, which, as you know, I'm not a huge fan of rules. I'd rather find the hazard and fix it. But the rule is when you're operating a forklift, keep it as close to the ground as you can. Well, in our industry, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it has to be raised in the air to get it to where it's going, to go around the obstacles. It just has to be. That can be a hazard. And then, of course, and with the acid, and it's not the acid that I'm worried about. 11% isn't. I'm not worried about that, honestly. But it's the fog and the moisture and what it does in a plant where it's all foggy and you can't see very well. That's a pretty big hazard. And we've addressed that with lights and different things. And then floors, walking areas, that's always it. But most of these are everywhere. It's just our industry. It seems scarier than what it is. But I worked at a nuclear power plant and everybody thought that would be the craziest place to work. And honestly, it was probably one of the safest places, mostly because the accountability. I mean, you did anything wrong there, you're gone. You didn't have a second chance. Here we've got chances where we can coach each other and change each other's behaviors. And this isn't as scary as all that now that I've been here for a while.
But I'm glad you brought that up. To that end, how important is it to work on your culture so that people aren't fearful to bring these opportunities for improvement to light so that they can be addressed? Maybe this place when you got here, but certainly other places you've been, maybe you've seen it before where good people recognize hazards or opportunities for improvement, but for fear or for whatever reason, did not bring it out into the open and scrutinize with all the best minds of the organization to engineer out the problem. Can you maybe comment a little bit on, how culture matters from that perspective?
And so that the key part there, I still think, is the supervisors reacting with your local managers and how they react with the leadership, either it's the board or the owners or whatever. If we're not accepting not just criticism, but good ideas. I mean, I've always said that we're not hiring you for just you. I want all your past experience. If you were a plumber or you were a carpenter or you were a mechanic or whatever you were, you've seen some things that maybe we've never seen. So you come in on board and you see something, you go, you know what? I think this would work better. That's great if it's in their brain, but it's not great if they don't tell us. So that communication back and forth to us, and I'm hoping that safety opens that up even more with the good catches, but with also our observation program, because that they're giving comments back now we never received before. And we're getting some great ideas that I never thought of before. And I think that's the key part, communication and open communication. Just give them the freedom to say what they need to say.
Absolutely. Can you talk a little about the observation programs? How it works, how the rubber meets the road when folks are out there doing their observations. How that differs from maybe a write-up situation, if there are such things.
So once again, it goes down to recognizing what is dangerous and what isn't. What is a hazard and what isn't. So our observation program, we have very few things that we're looking for, things that we know through injuries or occurrences or just observing. I noticed that this is one of those things that we do. So an observation is all on behavior, an action that we do. And so we got a list and we go out there and the employees know that there's no place to put their name there so they can be honest. And we're looking for communication back and forth. And the hardest part of this program is the person doing the observation, he has to be able to recognize a hazard. So he's got to teach himself as he's out here. So imagine you know nothing about safety, like I was when I first started, and being told, I need to go look for hazards. Now you're going to spend your time doing this, looking around, and you're starting to see that. And then you're going to talk to the employee and say, I noticed that you were standing in the wrong spot. You were in the line of fire. And they say, I don't know what the line of fire is. Now you start to talk about that. And this is not us. This isn't management doing this. This is employee on employee, and they're open discussion and say, hey, how come you're standing there? Well, because I think it's a stupid rule for me to stand over here. Why? Well, I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to get in trouble. Well, your name's not on here. So the conversation goes back and forth, and pretty soon we're collecting all that data. We're not collecting names. And then we just kind of look at them and go, wait a minute. We obviously have a problem here. This is the fifth guy that says something about standing here as a stupid regulation or whatever it might be. Let's look into that. We address that and we let them know, hey, we heard you. We fix that. And pretty soon people are really looking for things. And you put that with the good catch where they're getting rewarded. It's changing their mindset. They're not just standing there doing their job every day. Now they're looking around and I wonder if I could make some award points, or I wonder if he's going to drop by and do an observation. Do I have my safety glasses on? It's all, that's what helps make the change. I think the observation process is the foundation of what we're doing, honestly.
You brought up Awardco. So just to give one of our partner suppliers a shout out, we love the Awardco platform. For those that don't know about Awardco, could you tell them a little bit about it?
It is an awesome program. I've never seen it before till I came here. Jamie Hines, our HR director, came up with this. And it's just a brilliant thing. So it's a system where anybody that's on the approved list can award points, however many. I mean, obviously you award points for birthdays and different things like that. But so for good catches, for instance, that's what I do. Somebody sends it in, and if it's a real good catch, I award 10 Awardco points right now. And it doesn't sound like much, but it's equivalent to $10. And you can go get a virtual gift card on Amazon, or you can buy clothing from one of our locations and get a nice Monnig Global shirt or whatever.
Or hat.
But yeah, or a hat.
Yeah.
We had somebody that had so many good catches. He bought tires for his car. I don't know if you know that.
Did not know that one. That's impressive.
Yeah, and they were all good catches. They weren't just making stuff up so that he can get some Awardco points. We have some that are really good at it. We have some that have never done it. I don't think they understand the program. So I constantly talk about that when I go to a job brief. Don't forget about the Awardco points because it tends to motivate people. You can also get points for something totally different that you wouldn't think of. So for instance, on Awardco, you can go get a room in Dubai. I mean, I'm not going to go there, but if I was, you can save up enough points to get a really, really expensive room, which would be kind of cool. If you're going to Atlanta, Georgia, knew you were going to go there for 4 good catches, you can go swim with the dolphins. So for 8, you could take your significant other swimming with the dolphins. Now there's some brownie points.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's just fun things to do with it, and I wish more people understood about it. That's something that we're going to promote more and more the next while, I think.
Absolutely. So for you business owners or managers out there, if you're not familiar with Awardco, get familiar with Awardco. It can really help transform your culture. It's done a tremendous job here.
Absolutely. And you don't have to give 10 points. It could be 5 points. It could be 2 points. It's whatever you want, or something outstanding. Somebody's prevented an injury or prevented a major occurrence. They've seen a fire somewhere and put it out. That's not a 10 Awardco point thing, in my opinion. I think in yours as well. If you protect the company, protect people, that's a little bit different than I found an extension cord that was frayed. I mean, you are protecting something, but you pulled somebody out of the line of fire just in time. And it doesn't have to be here. We've heard about somebody at home that's helped out the neighbor with something, and that was something outstanding. We'd do that too.
Absolutely. And I love the points. I love the Amazon, functionality there. The other thing I like about it is it's also a little bit like an internal social media page. So not only are they getting recognized with points that are effectively dollars to spend on Amazon, but they're also able to look at log in and check out who's earning these attaboys, attagirls for all the good things they're bringing to the organization. I think that matters too. It feels good to be recognized in front of your peers, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I think it just shows that we're listening, that we care. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that I've worked for in the past that I can say that that wasn't there. I mean, I think they cared, but it wasn't shown in that way. It wasn't out in the open that we care. I mean, that's something else that Monnig does. We care.
And it's not, I'd like to think we've always cared, but we've made some mistakes over the years and we still don't have it down. We're going to be working on improving it every moment of every day. But I think really about the time you came here is when we really started investing in these new platforms and new ideas, and you and Jamie and Ed and supplementing the brilliant team we already had. And I mean, it's been great, seeing the progress. Um, so what about technology and the place for technology, and how you've galvanizing is an old school heavy industry, and I think a lot of times people get stuck in that rut. It's old, it can't change. Whatever. Tell me how technology can help make your role run more smoothly in the galvanizing environment, and how you've started to adapt some of that.
You're right. It's different. Galvanizing is different. We've said that a few times, and people wouldn't understand unless they came and seen it. It is different. Um, it's not the cleanest area and that sort of thing. And we have 5 locations right now. Keeping track of everything is a little tough. When I started here, we still were everything was all paper, was in a filing cabinet, and there's 200 different software programs you can get out there from. Not so much money to a whole bunch of money. And I mean, the difference is huge from a couple thousand to a couple 100,000. And I did some research, and you folks approved it. It is a software program that is not out of this world, but it keeps track of our injuries. I don't use it for doing OSHA logs and that. I'm still a hands-on person for that. I want to feel everything. I want to fill it out myself. I don't want some AI thing to do it for me. But uh, as far as the good catches, all that comes through there. The observations all come through that. It's all automated. I don't have to go collect it. I don't have to add the data together. If I want to print off a stat report or whatever it is I want to do, I can do that real quick. And the other thing is it lets me know what we need to work on right now. I don't have to wait for the end of the month. I can go pull up something and say, you know what, this location is having an issue with this, and we can address it right now. It's huge. It's very important. Now it's now available on our phones. We can so that some of us could use our phone and go out there and it collects all that data. It's hugely important. Scary, but hugely important.
Yeah, I never thought I'd see the day with iPads roaming the plant collecting data, but it happens and instantly gives you access to the data, right?
It does. It does. Like I said, it's still scary sometimes. You're relying on that to transfer to you, and what if the internet's down and I need it right now? Or and then of course we're talking AI is coming up. Well, it's here already, and there's a whole other one time we'll get into that on a podcast. What my concern about AI is in safety. It's not taking my job. I'm not worried about that, but I'm worried about other things that I think that could come from it. So it's sometimes we just have to put our foot forward in faith and say, okay, let's see what it can do.
Absolutely. Well, I want to get a little bit scientific and statistical before we get a little philosophical. And so you frequently reference a particular pyramid, I think. I can't remember what you call it, but I'd like you to describe that and the statistical process for how you manage occurrences and events, and the numbers behind that and how they bear out over time, and maybe how that ties into not knowing exactly, or maybe you do know pretty close, how many people you've saved and helped working with a team of people to affect culture and reduce the number of things in the
Mhm.
pyramid, how that affects everything. I'll let you talk them.
Well, it's the Heinrich pyramid, and the safety world. There's two different. Some people don't believe in it, and it's a pyramid with the base is how many at risk behaviors you do, meaning how many times do I walk with my shoelaces undone. Uh, they say 300 out of 330 times, 300 times nothing happens. 29 times it's a small thing, broke my finger or something small, and then one time it's something catastrophic. So if I walk with my shoelaces undone all the time across the room because I'm too lazy to do it here and I want to sit in my chair, I have a good chance at 330 times, 300 times nothing happens. Now there's a problem with this number. It's not accurate. But it's still the Heinrich principle, and there's another one. There's SIFs, which is serious injuries and fatalities that they can add on and all that kind of stuff. But let's just take the principle in whole. The principle is that if we constantly do something that is unsafe, eventually it's going to bite us, right? I mean, that's just common sense. So I take those numbers, but I can't say the numbers are 100% accurate, but I definitely know over the years that I've been doing this that when I see something that is done a certain way and that individual is constantly doing that and he gets hurt. And oftentimes it's just a little one, maybe a broken arm. I still consider that little in any world that we live in because there's so many worse things that could happen. But I've also seen it where it was the second time that he did it and he got hurt. So it's not 100% foolproof, but it's a great way to attack at-risk behaviors to say, we know that if you, everybody's got to agree to this. If I constantly do this, someday it's going to bite me. I mean, I know that. If I never put my safety glasses on when I'm using a skill saw, at some point I'm going to get something in my eye. And I'll bet you there's many people out there who know exactly what I'm talking about. A little bit of sawdust, you go, oh, I should have put them on. They're sitting right there. That's kind of what the principles is. And if we can attack that at the bottom and stop that, we're never going to have the middle or the top. So if the top of the pyramid is something catastrophic and I don't want it, then let's look for what are we doing that's unsafe, and let's eliminate that through many different ways. Either I hate to say discipline because that's not where I want to go, but maybe coaching. We might have to do that, or maybe we change the process, we change how we're doing it. We preferably not PPE, as we know that's the last thing and it's the easiest thing to forget to do. Maybe putting up barriers or whatever, but we're never going to get there if we don't recognize what it is that we're doing. We don't see that. I mean, I do things lots of times that I didn't realize till somebody pointed out. Did you know that you always do this? I'm like, you're kidding me. Well, that's pretty stupid. That's the whole idea of the bottom of the pyramid. Let's just knock those things out, and we'll do a lot better. I think it goes for operations too, though. You know, we're always failing on this for this customer. Why is it? Why is it we're doing that? We go back and look. We go, well, wait a minute. Well, that's crazy. Why do we do it that way? Let's change that. And the root cause process comes in. And maybe that's a little deep, but
We're dealing with the problem, not the symptoms so much. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Now for the philosophical part, those that don't know you well might not know your appreciation for poetry, especially this one poem in particular. It really tugged on my heartstrings the first time you brought up. I know you know the poem I'm talking about here. Um, could you? I don't know if you know the title of it or who wrote it, but could you talk about what that poem means to you?
Yeah, it's the I chose to look the other way, and I can't remember who wrote it, but it's Merle something, and I should know it by heart. But and it's just I'll just paraphrase it because I don't know it by heart. But it's when you look at something, the individual was looking at something. He knew the guy was going to get hurt. He's seen him do it every day, and he knew it was wrong, and he just never said anything. Wasn't brave enough to say it, and sure enough, the guy died, and it's because he chose to look the other way. It touches me more for a few different reasons. First of all, I got into this business as a safety person because somebody got hurt at work. I mean, that's how it often happens. I didn't want to do this, but I knew what he was doing. We were all doing it. None of us were doing anything safe at that time. And I think we all said it. One day somebody's going to get hurt. And sure enough, it wasn't long. It was like a month later, somebody got hurt. That kind of hits home. I should have said something, but I was brand new employee. We were all brand new company. Like when it was a startup, a joint venture for an American company in Canada. So there wasn't many people there when we started up. The Americans stayed here and the Canadians stayed there, and a few guys taught us, and we just did our own thing. And we knew it. We all knew we should have been taught something, anything. And then I was working for a different company, for a company that was doing the electrical for the windmills. And I was at a location, and they had like 100 windmills. And this individual, like 21, safety guy, on fire. Just those guys that kind of make you cringe. You know, it's like, what do you mean you want me to do that? He was so serious that he wanted you to wear a hard hat in your vehicle because oftentimes you forgot to put it on when you got out. I mean, he was gung ho. Don't get me wrong, that's awesome. How he went about it was, I mean, a little different. But when he tells you the story, you go, wait a minute. So he was on a roof working with his friend. His father owned the company, and he was going to walk around the pole and not be tied off. And he knew. He said, "I knew he was going to fall," and he didn't fall and fell and died. That 21-year-old is going to be the best safety guy later on. He's a great safety guy now, but he's even going to get better later on with experience in different companies. And that really hit me because it's just honestly, how many times have you said, "I knew that was going to happen"? If it's, I knew that was going to happen, he was going to drop it. That's one thing. If I knew it was going to happen, but somebody got hurt, you got to live with that. You know, it's one thing he got hurt his elbow, smacked his thumb with a hammer, but it's another thing if somebody dies. And you say to yourself, man, I could have said something. I didn't say it. I could have said something. That's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a real important poem to you, isn't it?
It is very important. And I think that's kind of why safety became a passion. Like I said, it wasn't for the first couple of years. Kind of a pain, not a very fun job. And sometimes it's not fun, just like any job. But it's certainly, I want people to go home at the end of the day. I don't like people getting hurt. I'm not a big softy by any means, but I know what it's like to get hurt. I've done it a few times to myself. I've seen family members get hurt and other people get hurt. But in my line, I've seen more than that, a lot of it. I've seen fatalities and had to do investigations, all kinds of nasty things. And after a while, it's like, I don't want anybody to have to go through that. I don't. The worst part to me isn't even the fatality of the individual; it's his family. You know, having to talk to his family or see the family. You talk about look the other way. You run into somebody at Walmart that that their son had passed away somewhere on a job site. It's kind of hard to look at them. Just yeah, affects you that way.
Absolutely. So obviously you're a remarkable man. You also have a remarkable wife. Can you tell us a little bit about your spouse?
Yeah, I wouldn't be here without her. I can tell you that much. This is how. I'll just give you a quick little story. So obviously we're Canadian, but we're American now. So I'm proud American. Aha,
Welcome to
USA,
America. That's
all the
right.
way USA. Yep. Uh, so she was born in Montreal, and I'm from Ontario, Canada. And we met, we got married, and I was making much money, working at the airport for like $8 an hour, and she had a good job at the bank. My brother-in-law called me up from Alberta and said, "I need you help here to help me do work my business." And I went and looked at it, and I called her up, and she took one look at it and said, "I'll go wherever you go." And that's not a normal woman. And then while we were there, a year later, they had to close their business. Uh, their number one customer collapsed, so they had to close their business. She got another job. I got a job doing what I'm doing, and I was traveling back and forth to the States for the first 5 years, gone every week, home on the weekends, and she was very supportive. She kind of liked it. She's an artist, so she likes her time at home. So she loved it, and I got to bring her to the States back and forth. And when they moved me here, she didn't hesitate. Now, that's might not seem like a big deal. So lots of people move, but our entire family lives in Canada, except for my aunt. My wife's uncle lives in Florida, and he's got a place in Tennessee. That's a strong woman. That's a woman that just says, "Yeah, whatever we got to do, we'll do it together." We have a strong faith, so we just rely that God said this is what to do. And my whole career has been obviously guided that way. Nobody can pick what I did. I mean, you can't do what I did on your own, honestly. God had to be involved somehow here, or whatever you believe in. But I believe in God did it this way. She just followed along. She's a very incredible woman, amazing woman. Supports me to the end.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's good to have those people in your
Oh,
life.
absolutely.
So tell me about fishing. Fishing is also important to you, as I understand it.
Huge. I love fishing. We moved to Iowa. We spent 17 years in Iowa. That's where we moved to from Canada, and I swore Iowa has no fish. I don't think I don't think God likes Iowa because there was no fish. Or at least we didn't catch any. Other people are now. I got to clarify. Fish. I don't mean catfish. Right. I'm from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
We don't eat catfish. I've tried it once, and I'm going to try. I told Lewis I'll try his once I feel comfortable. I will try his. But I mean, we're talking 3-foot pike and big bass and that kind of thing. And we moved here and we had such a hard time, but we went fishing all the time anyways. Moved to Missouri 3 years ago. I had to get a boat. I'm half an hour from putting the boat in the water at home in Sedalia, and we just love to fish. My wife, she's got the poles ready on Friday. I mean, we love to fish together, and she could care less if she catches anything. She's just so comfortable in the boat fishing and looking at the bobber, and of course I want to catch something monstrous. And most of the time she catches the bigger fish, just sitting there enjoying life. But yeah, it's very important. It's our vacation on the weekend.
Awesome. Glad that you have that outlet for everything. So, one other question for you, then we'll wrap up here for this episode. Someone out there listening to this is thinking, maybe this is a path that might be for me. The whole safety side of things, EHS side of things. What advice do you have for that person as they're trying to figure that out?
Well, it's like an octopus. There's all kinds of tentacles and there's all kinds of spots in safety. Industrial hygiene. Those are the guys that do the air sampling and noise monitoring and a lot more than that. But that's just one side. There's radiation. So you really have to figure, where do I really fit in? Because we're all different. Some of us like that and some of us don't. I'd say get your feet in the field. Ask your supervisor or your boss, "Hey, do you mind if I spend an hour here, maybe even on your own time, just to say, is this something I really want to do?" I mean, it's not an easy job. If you're not thick-skinned, it's definitely not an easy job. I've been called everything in the book, and I've been swore at, and that's not even just from employees. I mean, that comes from regulatory agencies. I mean, sometimes it's a really, really tough job, but there's times, if you care about people, there's times when you see things that happen that are just like, that is amazing. I watched that guy do that. He just put his hand on that guy's shoulder and pulled him back just a foot, and he just saved something. That's amazing. But if that's not you, it's not the job. If you're all about rules and regulations, that might be an OSHA area for you. So you need to understand that part. I'm a behavioralist guy. I like behaviors. I like root cause analysis, and I like to know, why did you do that? I say that to myself. Why is that guy doing 45 and a 55? There's probably a reason. Why? I don't get mad because I want to know why. Now, I used to, but I don't so much anymore. I'm getting older. But yeah, I would try it out. It's not for everybody. If you're doing it for the money, you're in the wrong business. Money does come, it does, but with years, it doesn't come right away. Even from college, if you're going to go to college and get your degree, or if you want to go become a certified safety professional, the money doesn't come right away. So let's understand that. And schooling is not all it is to be. I didn't do a whole lot of schooling to be where I am. As a matter of fact, I didn't do any schooling for a long time. I just learned the hard way, and I think that's the most important thing. You learn the hard way. Just remember, we're not cops and we're not judges. We're just here to help people. So.
Absolutely. And I misspoke. I do have one other question I'd like to pose to you. So, a lot of galvanizers out there. We have the American Galvanizers Association, does a terrific job. Ryan Monnig is very involved, sharing technical expertise and collaborating on marketing initiatives and so on and so forth. And we know they're doing work on environmental health and safety. So maybe give us your impression of where things are in terms of industry collaboration, and where you think things could go in the future in terms of improving the level of industry collaboration.
I look at it as baby steps, and I really don't have. Really shouldn't say a whole lot because I haven't been involved a whole lot. Unfortunately, sometimes I'm a fireman. I go where the fire is. Probably shouldn't say that in our industry, but and so I've had to miss a bunch of those. But I try to join as much as I can. They're very outspoken. They're very honest. All the different companies. We don't care about who you work for. That doesn't even come up. I mean, we don't care what name is on the bottom. It's just who you are and what you're working on. I think that we're working well together. I think the key is going to be to keep that and maybe joining more people. This would be a great place for somebody to sit in if they were thinking about getting into safety. It'd be an interesting spot. Somebody that has experience in galvanizing. Hey, spend half an hour and listen. See what do you have any comments? What would you like to say? I think that's where we're going to go. I think AI is going to be a big push too here soon. At least I'm going to push it. So.
One thing that really impresses me about our industry is everybody understands the shared goals we have, and one of those shared goals at the top of the list is making sure that we are advancing the cause of safety, environmental, and health, and all those things. And so I'm very proud of the industry, and also what the American Galvanizers Association is doing. I have no doubt it's just going to accelerate, and it's going to grow exponentially. If someone in the industry wanted to pick your brain, would you be okay with that? If they wanted to reach out to you, Joseph Colgan, and talk to you about an issue they foresee, or maybe ask you a question?
Absolutely, always. I mean, the nice thing about most safety professionals is we don't have any secrets and nothing is confidential. I don't mean company wise. I mean, as far as I have an SOP on it, I'll give it to you. If you don't know what an SOP is, I'll tell you what it is. Right? If you have a question about I have to deal with this regulatory agency and I don't know how to do it, I'm okay with it. We don't hide those things. Part of the nice thing about being in safety for a long period of time is we've been through it, we've seen it, and now it's our turn to coach. By all means, give me a call, email me, text me, smoke signals. I'm good with it.
I've always firmly believed that you don't really understand something until you can effectively teach it. And I think you're describing that. And we're still learning, and we're never going to stop. But I think there are some things that we can teach others if they want help.
Exactly. And you're exactly right. If you want to learn something, teach it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get some questions, it. So you have to know your stuff.
All right, guys. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. You've been with us at Hot Dipped, and I want to thank you, Joseph, for everything you do for us.
Well, thank you. Yep. It's been awesome.
Thank you for watching Hot Dipped. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell for future episodes.